I get my TV card, so it's easy to I'm probably going to do that Friday. Not go to classes there. Hop on a plane. I'll say on a plane and come down.
However you
other than that,
Did you mute it or did I mute it? Because I tried to mute.
Oh, that's what you're trying to.
I tried to mute this at the same time. Push the white button.
Yeah, great.
Does it say mute or okay? There we go.
That's what you're trying to.
I'm trying to because it's picking up the sound in a couple different places. So I'm trying to make sure. So do I mute the microphone on here or do I mute the microphone on there? Because this is.
I think these are stuck. Oh, no, I know.
So they can hear us.
Yeah, no, we're good. No. That's fine.
Sasha, can you hear her?
That's right. Sasha, can you hear us?
What's that?
Yeah, what is that?
There are those things.
Let me do this real quick.
I think they're mine.
Alright, so you see here, and then you should use the mic and then just pass the mic. Yeah. I guess. Or
Should they?
So we can move the computer to wherever you put the people. We will move the computer appropriately. So yeah. I was going to say if we can reach it. Let me unplug it. Let me unplug. For the HDMI. That's the okay. Let's do this. Now, Kara, can you check the computer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here it is. Oh, sorry. The viewers here. I think that's such a hard job. My dad was a doctor from a medical family. Yeah. But it's never a great choice for me because I get nauseous thinking about it.
Right. You sort of get used to that thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm getting old now, so I never used to be able to go anywhere near a needle. But now I've been taught it for several years.
Yeah. I actually know a lot of nurses that are afraid of needles. Like they have their own giving shots,
Right.
But like they are afraid of
I think that's
themselves,
right.
and afraid of needles for themselves.
I'm not sure that's a good emergency here. I've noticed that's one place I tell like this school kind of thing. I don't even want to deal with it. I just drop out. But in emergency, I've watched other people. Yeah, I'm really good at that.
And I think with stuff like this, you know, part of nursing is just saying, all right, well, this is the situation, so might as well try to do something. But at the same time, and I tell this to people that I train all the time, it's a 24-hour job. You can't do time you have about it and do the best you can.
Yeah.
But you can't do it. So that's
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
Well, that whole thing taught me more about myself. It reminded me of
I mean, and it's just the kind of thing that
I would delegate that as I've been a leader for some years, but I would go to people like that kind of thing. And I would say, we like this,
and I think that other perspectives say, all right, well, this is the choice that we're being dealt.
right.
So
Yeah, that's not
try to do something, get the rest of our hands. So I think that.
And what is the color? You're green. Oh, you're green.
Green and blue. But I think you sort of have to be green to win.
Yeah. Right. It's interesting because Ruella, she said she thought she was blue, but she, or some other color, but I remember she was green.
Go ahead, Asha.
She's in healthcare. She said not a practitioner.
Right. Oh, Google Hangout. Good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be?
No.
We're not gonna be able to watch it.
But you're not 24/7. You're not.
Can you have that video?
I don't think you need to chat.
Doctors, my mother would be on call.
It's very different. So we are FTEs, but we're 49 FTEs, so it's 3 shifts.
Yes, Asha, can you hear us?
And 3 shifts is 24/7.
3 shifts is
Testing. Asha, can you hear us?
You're actually a GWAA. Sure am. Unfortunately, I'm an employee of UHS and not the hospital.
I'm
Oh, hello. Yeah.
All right, folks, can we have everybody's attention? Sorry, I just need quiet in the room. Excuse me, I just need quiet in the room for a sec. We're trying to figure out audio. Oh, wow. Okay, so can folks on the phone hear us? Probably not.
There's a delay of about 10 seconds.
Well, that's a long delay.
It looks like too much of an issue.
Okay, can folks on the phone hear us?
We don't know if we're coming from if the audio is coming from the phone or if it's coming from the video.
The best way is to join this.
There's 5 viewers on this. How many of them?
To use the phone for voice and use this just for the video.
Okay, so
combine it.
folks on the phone, what we're hearing is that if you use the, if you switch over to the Google Hangout connection and use the audio on the Google Hangout, that will be in better sync with what we're doing here. There's a really long delay between the phone line and the Google Hangout.
Remember the market.
Switch on over to the Google.
There we go.
We're gonna hang up the line here then, right? Okay. So join us over on the Google connection. Okay, now we'll try that.
You're supposed to be the prototype.
Yes, right.
Prototype.
We're dropping the marshmallow here. So if I can have our other committee chairs joining me up here. Folks on the Google Hangout, can you hear us? Josh, is there should we be hearing audio out of the computer?
Should be.
Do we have a? It is muted.
Oh, the mic's off, I think. Yeah. I'll come get you some, yeah, for sure.
Scroll over the video screen. Scroll up.
There's the mic's off.
Oh, no, it's not. It's on.
I think we have to.
This says projector audio muted.
Well.
Rula says they can hear but can't talk. Maybe that's okay.
Well, we've got a couple committee chairs on the front, so
We'll keep working on
okay. All right. Well, let's give this a shot. We're going to start with folks here in the room. We're all snugly like living room here, but all right. We're going to attempt at a couple new things. One is obviously the technology, which we're figuring out, but the other is the idea of doing a committee panel discussion. And this is based on a couple things, largely in some of the feedback that Chris mentioned in the process that she just talked a little bit about. We had some sense from folks that some of the feedback we received was that there might be a lack of understanding about what some of our committees do. We presumably think you know what you're doing on your committee, but maybe not on some of the other committees. So it would be helpful to get a sense of that. And the other is it's always a good opportunity as we look at how we function as a board and function as committees that we can probably learn from each other in that respect. So this is a chance for us to share some of that information. So it's twofold. One is for you to know what some of the other committees do direct from the source, and the other is to kind of, from your committee's perspective, to hear what some of the other committees are looking at from in terms of issues and how they work and how some of that can maybe be applied to your committee. And maybe if there's a third goal in there somewhere, somebody might get inspired to be a committee chair and let us know about that too. So with that, I'm going to do quick introductions. We do have a couple folks from committees on the phone. We're going to try to get them into the discussion here. If not, we'll do with what we have here, and I can maybe chime in a little bit when it comes to some of the answers on the other committees. We'll do our best. So we'll start with our folks here in the room. I'm just going to do a quick round robin, who you are, what committee you're from, and really quickly, what does that committee do? So I'll go to the left and with Chris.
Thank you. So for the third time today, I'm Chris Carnivus. I chair the Nominations and Governance Committee. And so just to give you a sense of what is unique, I think, about the GWAA board is on the nomination side, which is a lot of what the committee has really focused on over the last years, is we do nominations for two boards. We do nominations for the members at large who are on our board. The school reps are chosen by the schools, the Mount Vernon rep is chosen by the Mount Vernon community. And then we have, our student rep is from the Student Association, and we have that, and we also have a faculty rep. So we really focus on the members at large for our board. But we also choose the alumni reps for the trustees board. So the alumni trustees come through a nominations process that we go through every 2 years. And we typically try to pick three choices for every open seat. So if there's 7 trustees over a period of, I don't know how many years are chosen, we are sending up 21 nominations. So it is a little bit unique. It has a history there. It's a privilege to be able to do it, but it is a lot of work on the nomination side every 2 years to need to have 2 nominations processes during the year. From the governance perspective, and I'll say this, I don't think I said this morning, I am the 4th chair of this committee in 4 years. So, and the good thing is that people tend to move on, and Jeremy was chair and Vanessa was chair, and don't think that I'm going that route. but it is, a challenge to try and have some continuity. So on the governance side, I think you've heard people say we really are trying to play catch up with governance, and some of the extra committees that you see, whether it's strategic planning or whether we put a school rep position. Jeff Fair had a committee to put a school rep position description together. Those are things which have been doing governance kinds of work, and we're starting to bring that back into the committee over the next couple of years. I think it'll come back through the strategic planning process. So what we deliver and what we should be delivering on a regular basis. What works with position descriptions, we will start to see, start doing charters. We need to deal individually with people. Your experience on the board is important. We should be able to have a picture of what happens in your first year and second year and third year. When do we get feedback from you? And we do come to you and in your third year, we want to know if you're going to re-up. And we need to help foster the succession planning. And so all of those things take processes that need to be built for this board and many other things. So it's about board performance, it could be about board education, development of leaders, development of you on a board. We're in a university. Many of you come on the board with no previous experience on a board. And what we want you to do is leave the board knowing what it means to be on a board and have a good experience on the board. So we encourage you I encourage you to give us feedback. Can't promise we'll act on everything, but particularly I tend to focus truthfully on the first, second people. That's what I can handle right now. So second year people who had their first year, what could have been improved? And some people went to orientation yesterday. Do you have feedback? And those kinds of things help us think about what do we change. And we've already started changing some things. We'll see in the board directory, we're putting terms in. People have a sense where you are in your board journey. We're also going to be collecting, you'll get a update email. We want to collect, truthfully, the year you graduated from college. And that is our proxy for asking you your age. Because on this board, when you look at the bylaws, we have a whole number of factors, and we have a whole range of people on the board. And so I think we should be sharing the schools where you went to school that are not GW. And part of that is if Julie Silverbrook was here, she's our parliamentarian. You may not know she's a lawyer. You may not know that she went to William & Mary Law School. And some of you may have gone to William & Mary and know. I'd like to know if you're going to network. So we're starting to improve the information out to the board. So when we're asking you these things, please respond because there is a reason for doing it. So anyway, our committee has a full plate. You'll be hearing a lot about governance, and I hope that even though I know there are a lot of oranges and blues and greens in the room, and a lot of people with so much background and different, if you have questions, just because you don't really understand what's going on because it's not your thing, just, give me a call, send me an email. I'll be glad to just do a little bit of a question and answer session. So it's fun. I love this. So, but that's why I guess I'm doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pippa, and I am the vice chair of the Board Committee. Jen apologizes he could not be here today. He's on vacation with his kids, which is well deserved from talking to him last week. He's been a very busy man. Our committee is we get to do, we all get to do fun stuff, but we get to do fun stuff, the parties and the celebrating of our alumni. There's two separate awards. Well, there are actually 4 awards, but 2 separate ceremonies that we host every year as part of the GWAA. One is the Distinguished Alumni Achievement Awards and Recent Alumni Achievement Awards. And that's sort of our Oscars. It's where we celebrate in terms of, what does our committee contribute to the GWAA is we reach out to our community and find out who's doing what do our alumni do, and who's doing it the best, who has had wonderful accomplishments, who's contributed to our society, to our community, all of those sorts of things. And what we find every year is that we have stupendous alumni and that they are doing unimaginably cool things, unimaginably wonderful things that are very unique. So our recent alumni also do the same thing. So we celebrate them. Our board works together to choose. Sometimes it's a little difficult, but we choose which alumni we're going to celebrate among those that have very distinguished achievements. Our second award ceremony that we do is our Alumni Outstanding Service Award and our Jane Lingo Award, which is for faculty that have had excellent service to the university. And that's really more about celebrating service, celebrating philanthropy, celebrating contribution to our school and to our community through service. whatever that looks like. And again, that's another wonderful award. And we do, it's sort of celebrated in a different manner. It's a little bit more close, a little less closely, but it is very fun. And again, it really is about highlighting, finding, honoring, and celebrating our alumni.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fiona Conroy. I chair the Programs Committee. The Programs Committee is sort of a hybrid committee. It's sort of confused. I like it. Where nominations and governance and awards have set processes they do every single year. Programs has one of those, which is the grants program. We took over the GWAA grant program in the last year. It was previously managed and administered by staff, and now we work in concert with staff, but we do the bulk of the selection process for the grant recipients. So these grants, if people are not aware, are basically grants up to $2,500 that we give to either student or alumni organizations for the events they host that involve and reach out to and engage alumni. So an example might be, instead of an event that we do, as Pippa was talking about, like as an association here, if the Rugby Alumni Association or the Black Alumni Association or whatever it is doing an event and they apply for a grant, then we can help subsidize the cost of that event to support, alumni engagement. So that's one area of the work we do. The second thing the Program Committee does is to really advise on signature programs at the university that involve alumni. So Alumni Weekend, coming up in October, 27th through 30th. And then the GWAA Homecoming, which is in January or February, normally around a basketball game. And so while the university has very involved planning processes that are years long to put on these big events, we feel that our role is to gather the voice for alumni, one of the key goals of this board, and provide feedback and advice and guidance on the planning and execution of those events so that alumni get the most out of them, participate in them at a high level, and really.
Thanks, Fiona. My name is Aaron Binstock. I am chairing the ad hoc committee for direct alumni outreach this year. So an ad hoc committee is slightly different than the committees that my colleagues here are chairing, in that it's not a standing committee in the bylaws that exists from year to year. But this committee was created this year, as you probably heard from Jeremy earlier, as a way to further his goal with respect to developing a worldwide alumni community and getting alumni more engaged. And so the principal thinking around this committee is to think about and develop a program and plan for how can we as a board directly reach out to alumni or select groups of alumni, and in a way that's a little bit more personal than sending an email or a mailing or just randomly showing up at events. But how do we really create a targeted plan to directly have our board members reach out to alumni for a particular purpose? And so it's an ad hoc committee. We've been doing a lot of thinking about what this direct outreach should look like, and a couple ideas have floated that we're going to try to take on in this first year to try to accomplish this goal. And so just to share them very high level, one of them is to take Alumni Weekend and use that as a way to engage alumni in the community. And so in advance of Alumni Weekend, the thinking is that we'll reach out to alumni leaders, and we're still thinking about the appropriate scope given the time frame and some other considerations, but to reach out to maybe regional alumni leaders or affinity groups or school leaders, people who are already interested in the school, but maybe would benefit from connecting with our board or would benefit from becoming more involved, and having our board reach out to those people directly, encourage them to attend, and then when they attend, having a very clear message and plan for what they would be doing and how they would be interacting with us and how we would be interacting with them, and gaining feedback. And I think even though it was set up for the developing a worldwide community, I think this also goes to another goal, which is being a voice for alumni, because there'll be a lot of back and forth and communication with those people along the way. And so I think it ultimately serves multiple prongs in our from our goals. So that's one program that we're thinking about for this initial year, and then the other is thinking about some sort of mentor mentee type program where we would work with students who are on the verge of graduation, who are about to become alumni, and there's a couple groups that we're thinking about, but pairing those people up with board members in a way that we could facilitate their transition from students to alumni and continue to make sure that they remain involved and that they're thinking about GW and becoming active alumni. And so again, this is a new committee, so if you have other ideas, please email me or attend our committee meetings. Again, this is in addition to the standing committee. So if you volunteer or shown interest in serving on this ad hoc committee, we had an 8 a.m. meeting this morning, which will be in addition to the committee breakout this afternoon. So it's a little bit more work, but appreciate everyone's volunteering for the extra time. And I think excited to hear new perspectives, because this is something that's evolving and hopefully becomes a really good, valuable program for the board.
Aaron and Asha are on the phone.
Aaron and Asha are on the phone. So
What we haven't figured out is how we can connect.
The phone is live right next to Aaron Binstock, so if you pass the mic down, you can.
Oh, gosh, we're in the old school here.
all right, so Aaron Deere, we're gonna give this a shot. Hopefully we can hear you. Just tell us who you are, Aaron Deere, obviously, but what your role is, and tell us about your committee and what that committee does.
Thanks. Am I coming through?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Aaron Deere, I am a 2000 graduate of LA School of Business School. I've been on the board now for several years, and am the treasurer for the finance committee. We've got a we've got a complete rollover of the committee this year, so I'm excited to work with our new members. We've got some big challenges ahead. Over this past year, our finances have held up reasonably well. Our net assets are up year over year, but we do have some challenges. Our revenues are down considerably, and our expenses have ticked higher. And I'm more worried about what's going on the revenue side. Is we have really almost zero control over the revenue coming from our affinity partners, and our Mercer Liberty mutual contract is coming due for renewal. And they're already kind of signaling to us that our funding is likely to go down. So we've got our work cut out for us over the coming year. So we've got a few goals that I'm hoping that we can work out. One is we'll be renewing our Mercer Liberty contract this. Hopefully we can do that at favorable terms for us. And then I want to migrate our financial reporting from Excel to a more robust accounting program. The financial reports that you guys have seen, I think are kind of inadequate and probably not as accurate as they should be. So that's a priority. And then I'd really like to advance efforts that we've made in the past but haven't made much progress on in developing a new affinity partner. So one of the things that I would like to ask of everyone on the board to think about is that if you are aware of either through other schools that you've attended or experiences that you've had of opportunities like what we have with B of A, Mercer, with Liberty Mutual, opportunities that we can reach out to other affinity partners or folks that can become affinity partners to help us on the revenue side, we'd certainly be open to those ideas. You can reach out to myself or any one of the committee members with those. But otherwise, those are kind of the big priorities and the things that we'll be working on here and out.
All right, thanks, Aaron. And Asha, we'll have you go next.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Asha Aridakshin. I graduated from the School of Business in 2002. I have been on the committee for 4 years, and the last 2 serving as Vice President. The Career Services Committee engages 275,000 colonials worldwide in the professional development opportunities offered by GW. These are both in-person and virtual. And just looking at last year's calendar, they had 22 in-person events and 13 virtual events, and these are run out of the Office of Alumni Relations and the Center for Career Services. All the events are open to all alumni and students. We work really closely with Karen Brooks, who's in the room, and with Marla Guns-Jennings, who's in the Center for Career Services. We co-create our goals together to make sure that we're aligned with, with the GWAA wants, with Center for Career Services wants for the students, and what the Office of Alumni Relations wants for alumni. And we want to make sure that we are creating programming that comes across and reaches people into the media that they prefer, where they need it, when they want it. As for example, virtual networking has been something that GW kind of pioneered, and that's something that's really taken off with monthly events. People have career fairs, the traditional sense that people kind of meet employers on campus. Last year, we launched a Breakfast and Business Card series that's taken off and been really popular. And now we're focused on industry network groups, which you'll be hearing more and more about this coming year. All of our goals were co-created by the committee. We met, we decided together what we wanted to work on. We actually had kind of a reset year last year, given the change in leadership in OAR. And we used it to really take a step back to make sure that we had the data we needed to create programming that would be useful and relevant to people that are looking for jobs, looking to change jobs, to build their network, and really like did a lot of surveys, used the survey data to inform that programming. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to be doing this coming year.
All right, thanks, Asha. Just to confirm, we don't have Jack. You're not on the line, correct? And James, the same, you're not with us? Okay, so I'm going to give a quick update on behalf of those two committees. So Jack Hackett chairs the Student Alumni Initiatives Committee, which is one of the committees that benefits from doing what its name sounds like. It works on programming between students and alumni. In the past, that has meant things like helping conceive ideas such as the Dinner with Alumni program or the How Do I Become a series. That was a pretty popular program here on campus, really looking at that intersection between students and alumni. And where it's focused more recently is on the potential in fostering student alumni engagement through student organizations. And so they did a survey last year of current student organizations, asking them about awareness of alumni as a resource and about some ideas for how they might benefit from alumni engagement. When we did our board meeting last winter, I believe it was, we focused on the student experience and student engagement as a theme for that. And I think one of the ideas that came out of that board meeting and the discussions with the Colonial Ambassadors was the opportunity to intersect with alumni through student organizations. It's something that's very natural in the career context. Students understand that it makes sense to talk to alumni about career opportunities and vice versa. They wouldn't necessarily think of it from a student organization perspective, though, and that's another natural touch point that we think is worth exploring and trying to build programming out of. The last committee is the Communications Committee. Also does what it sounds like, communications work. Much like student alumni initiatives and programs and some of our other committees, we as a whole board are advisors to the Office of Alumni Relations, and our committee structure is meant to reflect that as well. So they are advisory to a particular function of that office. The Communications Committee is meant to be sort of strategic advisors to the communications team here in the Division of Development and Alumni Relations. So in that vein, they've done a couple things. One is just boots on the ground, helping identify story ideas for alumni to feature in communications. There are a lot of interesting folks out there, and a lot of interesting folks in here too, with stories of their experience that we think are worth sharing with other alumni. So it really helps the university expand. Oh, it's how it just fell. They helped expand that network and identify those stories. The other bit of work that they worked on recently that you saw on that show this morning was looking at the structure of the new refreshed GW alumni website. So what information should be included there and how that should be presented and aligns, and working with the communications team, I think was really helpful to give that alumni input on that. And then, as you heard James mention this morning, James Walker, who's the chair of that committee, they're going to be focused on internal communications within the board. The way I described it yesterday in our orientation was, I've been doing it sort of ad hoc, but the plan is, Jim wakes up and thinks, oh, we should send something to the board about that. We should perhaps be a little more deliberate than that and do something a little more organized. So the committee is going to look at the ways to approach that. So that's the story of who we all are and then what we all do. What I want to ask next is for each of our committee chairs to talk a little bit about one of their goals and two things about that. First, what the goal is, but also, how did the committee arrive at that as a priority? How did it decide that's something we should focus on? And how does that goal tie to the three goals of the association, which again are building a lifelong worldwide alumni community, gathering a voice for alumni, and building a culture of philanthropy? Some of you already sort of answered this already, but
we'll ask you to sort of touch on that again. So I'm going to go the same order again, I think, Chris.
I'm still sitting here thinking that I have, I'm very fortunate we have 11 committee members. So I have a pretty big committee. 2 of the committee members are returning. And so when I think about the goals, I just sat down and did goals and was trying to think about how to try to start to demonstrate what governance was. And one of the people from last year had a very interesting feedback comment when he described the committee as inward looking. Maybe stop to think a little bit. You know, because some people like going out and as Pippa describes how great it is to work with the alumni and see all the talented alumni, and you're looking out over the whole range of the different schools and what people have accomplished and the terrific people. What I say to the notion of inward looking is we're all alumni. So our experience, if the experience on the board is not the best it can be, you know, the first thing we have to do as volunteers and as members of the board is make sure that our experience on the board is good. That's how I look at maybe achieving some of the goals, giving a voice to and being a representative and an advocate for our board members. And so it might be that my community of alumni are not quite as, you know, nominations and governance, we're talking here about board operations. We're talking about how does the board operate? We're all alumni, and we touch a lot of alumni. So to the extent that you're getting applications like the awards committee, we could go through and touch 100 alumni in a year that we do alumni, the trustee nominations. And the year that I got on, I think we did 110 applications, Jeremy, 150. You are touching every one of those people. Because if the letter that goes out and says, we didn't pick you for an interview, isn't written properly, you've just given someone an experience that is not a good experience. And last year, one of the things that I did was rewrite the letter to go out that gave negative news. And some people advocate we should pick up the phone and call those people. And there's a lot of merit to that. And I'm looking to, Matt's been really good about reminding, and he's going to help our committee remind, we touch alumni. And so when you talk about outreach, and you talk about other things, Erin, and I think we have outreach right here on the board. And so I think that when I think about my goals for the committee and how we're going to talk about goals, I'm thinking maybe my community of alumni that I better start with are the board members and the people we touch who apply. So you think about prospective board members, the first year people, board members, departing board members. What is your experience? And if we can improve that and take that to the next level, then I think I've touched alumni in the way of all of the goals the rest of you have. It may not be the bigger community. So hopefully I'm somewhere where the goals are supposed to be.
I think on awards that we have, and in a lot of what I was talking about, we have sort of external goals and internal goals. In terms of external goals, you know, we have 10 schools in the university now. 10 schools. And we get applications that tend to divert to 4 to 5 schools. So one of the things that we want to promote is diversity among who we're honoring. And that's part of the factor when we make our decisions. And so part of the external goal would be to get a more diverse group of applicants. And that comes down to not just our committee, but all of us. You know, who in your networks, who in your community, who in your school is doing great work or is such an excellent serviceman that they should be recognized for that. So part of ours is going to be trying to engage you guys a little bit more to encourage people from your school to apply, to encourage applications, put in applications yourselves, or nominations, I should say. Internally, one of the things that happens is that there is a selection process. And one of our goals is to sort of modify that, because that's sort of sometimes where our discussions, heated or unheated, lie. So one of the things that we want to try to do is modify how we assess the applications that are coming in. And in doing so, better, serve our ongoing goal of selecting wonderful people to receive these awards. Okay, I'm going to really quickly talk about two. One, mostly because they're in different areas. So the grant program I mentioned earlier, this is very, very exciting. I know you all learn more about it, but for us to sort of having taken over the basic administrative function and figuring out, how that actually works mechanically, right? Like setting grant deadlines for the year. Just so you all know, if you're not aware of it, we have allocated in our budget $30,000 to give these grants throughout the year. Last year, and I'll talk about this later in our report-in, but we had $65,000 in requests. So it's very exciting that the program is, that people are aware of it and they're interested in it. But to Chris's point, we can't obviously fund everyone for what they've asked for, and that's an interaction with alumni. So we want to be really thoughtful on a big goal for this year is ensuring that the grant program reflects the values of the GWAA, that it reflects the priorities that we all have in terms of creating lifelong engagement with the university among alumni, while at the same time sort of treating every conversation, every communication with a lot of thought, because we're going to say no sometimes, and that's something that we have to do. So that's a major goal when it relates to the engaging alumni in a lifelong way. On the gathering a voice for alumni side, that's one of our key goals as an association, but I really see Alumni Weekend as a place where we do that most specifically. One thing that I think is just a reality, I hope you all participate this year and every year, but it's a really exciting 4-day event, and there's lots that you can participate in. And then I think you go through the planning and the execution, and then there's this big sigh of relief, okay, we got through it, that was great, and that was a really good time. But there's not necessarily a lot of thought year to year from random alumni to express their feedback. If they had a bad experience with registration or whatever, they might be mad that they got through it. If they had a great experience at, whatever, one of the Taste of GW or a specific event, you get asked for an alumni survey after the event, but people may or may not fill that out. And so we really feel like our role is to, relating to the program, Alumni Weekend, Homecoming, really actively and proactively gather a voice for alumni about their experiences, report that back to staff, so that it can affect the future programming and help us change and develop. So those are two very deliberate goals of our committee that are in two different areas.
Thanks, Phil. So I spoke earlier about the two programs that the Direct Outreach Committee is thinking about for this year, and these are new programs. And so I think the goals that we have are to try to develop and successfully launch these, at least sort of on a trial basis, and in a way that is meaningful both to our board members who are participating, but also to alumni who we reach out to. But another goal, and I think as this is sort of a committee that's sort of trying this for the first time, it's going to be critical for us to to take the data and info and feedback coming out of this first cycle of these programs, and understand that, so that we're using the feedback in a way that we can improve on these programs in coming years. And so again, I think we would love to be successful on the first go, and that's obviously what we're going to try to do. But at the very least, we're going to establish two programs at a minimum. And again, welcome to other thoughts if people have ideas about direct alumni outreach. And then on the backside, create a summary and feedback that will be useful in coming years.
Aaron, you're up next.
I kind of already touched on our goal, but our committee function is, I guess, a little bit different than the others in that, we really kind of serve in more of the support function versus the outreach grants and programming that some of the other committees are engaged in. So our goal is, I guess, is not in many ways to ensure that we have the funds to achieve the goals of those other committees and to sustain ourselves as an association. But we're not in a great position with respect to revenue generation, since we don't charge dues to our membership or solicit funds from them for the benefit of the association. So we have to rely on our affinity partners, and that really leaves us exposed to a lot of volatility on the funding side, since we have minimal guarantees from our partners. and we have a lot of concentration in our partners. We really just have two sources of revenue. So it's very important to me that we try to work toward a better diversification of our revenue by adding one or more affinity partners and work hard to get a good contract when we are negotiating our new contract with Mercer this year. So those are kind of the big things on our plate going forward.
Thanks, Aaron. And Asha?
Sorry, I touched about this earlier also, but last year we had a reset year. We really looked at the data that we had, the programming that we were offering, and wanted to better align them. For example, one of our goals was how to leverage the existing career programs to further support the diverse talent and skills of the GW community. And that ties into how our larger mission of the GWAA and having programming that has a worldwide reach. And so we took a look at what we have as far as, we have webinars, we have in-person events, we have a powerful LinkedIn group where people can post and blog. And then we thought about what are the topic areas that people want help on. They want to understand what career services offers. They want to know how to switch careers. They want to maybe launch a business. They want to work in the freelance economy. And we created 11 themes, and we found ways to engage people on those themes, both in person and virtual, and created a schedule that Kara can then use to work on the programming that's offered by Alumni House, and that Margaret can use to inform the programming offered by Center for Career Services. One of our other goals was to enhance the data collection that we have through our different surveys. When you come to an event, there's a survey when you register, and there's also a post-event survey. And we realized the surveys weren't capturing the data that we needed to inform our programming. So we had an hour call with the committee just to tweak those questions and to make sure that we were putting answer choices that really would help us drive that information. We also took a look at the website. We had about 20 pages just related to career services, and we made sure that we compiled our feedback and gave that to the larger team that's working on the website we launched.
All right, thanks, Asha. So I'm going to jump to a little more specific question, and I'm going to go in reverse order. So Asha and Aaron, notice that you're up next. What do you think makes an effective committee member? What are the things you're looking for in a quote unquote good committee member? Let's start with Asha.
Sure. I think the biggest thing is to show up and participate. You took the chance in applying to be on the board, and you had to come with your ideas and how you have interacted with the GW community to the table to help inform what the committee is doing.
Thanks. And Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, I think we could show up and participate. And
Aaron, did we lose you? Really did. Show up there. All right, we'll go ahead and skip over to Aaron. Yeah, you are now, Aaron.
Sorry, I was speaking to no one apparently. I was just going to concur with what Asha said in terms of showing up and participating. It's and I'm sometimes guilty of not being as good as I could in that regard as well, just because we're all busy with our work lives and families, and so it can be tough at times. But it's to get our goals accomplished, we really need to be there, and so that's I don't know if anything really have beyond that.
Thanks, Aaron, and now we'll go to the other Aaron.
Yeah, I think I'll echo that active participation theme that you're hearing from other committee chairs. But just this morning, on our 8 a.m. call, I had 4 or 5 good ideas come from committee members that I'm actively jotting down that I hadn't even thought about. And so there's a reason why Chris's committee, and then the application process promotes that diversity, and every different way you can think of are thinking how they're thinking about the same issue, and so that we can really develop the best programming and activities for alumni that we can and represent everyone. So yeah, the committees are where a lot of the work gets done, and so having everybody on the committee in the committee for actively participating furthers that mission. So that's the number one thing. You'll hear a theme here, I'm sure.
I'm going to be different. I agree with that. I should echo that as well. But I think that Chris talked earlier in her report about the notion of thinking of this as a 6-year process. So 3-year terms if you're a member at large or, you know, a full rep, and then hopefully the desire to apply for and get a second 3-year term. And so I think good committee members are those that are thinking about their committee service in the same way, where, okay, you serve for a year and you learn what the committee does, and you sort of, you know, acclimate yourself, so to speak. But then you're already thinking about what can I contribute to this committee in terms of a specific competency or skill set, or what leadership role may I want to take on in the future. I think a lot of what the overall board has, you know, had as a challenge over the years is that there's not enough sort of leadership development within committees, so that when we do roll off, those of us that are rolling off this year, but that there wasn't necessarily like a succession path within committees, because either there wasn't an opportunity or the committee members didn't proactively seek ways to contribute. Does the work, shows up, and is accountable to the whole team, but also is thinking about how they can increase their level of service to the committee or take on more responsibility over time.
Thanks. I'm going to challenge Deborah and Chris to also maybe do my re-echo participation, but something else in the
I think so yes, participation, and for our group, it's also about realizing what your role is on the committee. So I think that understanding not only what the sort of goals are, but then what is it that your specific expertise, your area, your understanding of frame of reference in terms to what makes a good service person versus a distinguished alumni. So realizing really, you know, that your perspective matters and engaging your perspective and bringing that to the forefront during the discussion. Our committee is sort of unique in that we really have sort of 2 focused areas of, you know, rush work, and that we have a lot to do. And then for the rest of the year, it really is about building up, you know, what do we want this to look like? So having a little bit of vision and goals of your own as to bringing that to the table.
So there were a lot of good points made and different points made by everyone. I would just say that I think if you commit to something, follow through. So if you say you'll do something, you know, some of the goals of these committees are time sensitive. And if you're not participating and taking on and contributing, then others have to do more of the work. So I think that with this kind of committee and with some more discussion of this on the board, that people are learning, and so be engaged and see what we're doing. So I would just say if you take on an assignment, and I think whatever the assignment is, please follow through unless it's just impossible not to.
We have about 10 minutes or so left, maybe a little bit less. So I want to open up and see if we have any questions from other folks in the room for our committee chairs about their goals, about what their committees do, about what keeps them up at night, anything they'd like to ask. As President Trackberg used to always say, we'll go right to the second question because nobody wants to ask the first. Yes.
So one thing that has been confusing from the past, also myself, which I'm important, had the same question at one point. How are people selected to the committees themselves? Because even today I heard, well, that wasn't my first choice. So I'm very curious how these selections are made, because I was taken from one to another. It's not an issue, it's just it causes questions in people's minds. And we talk about it behind the scenes, but I thought I'd put it out there.
Sure, and I'll repeat the question. You know, how are committee members assigned to their committees? So as you all know, we ask you to fill out a survey that tells us your first, second, and third preferences for your committee assignments, and then from there we throw them on a big box, and Josh just randomly reaches it. Josh is very much involved in the process. He definitely takes the first crack at it. Here's what we do. We try our very best to get everybody into their first slot, ideally. We also confer with the committee chairs on feedback on how folks did in those committees, and sometimes, you know, move folks around, maybe trying them in a different opportunity if we think maybe their skill set's better suited for that opportunity. And then there's always the balance question, that, and that's the biggest factor, I think, in determining committees. We want them roughly to be about the same size, depending on their scopes of work. Nominations has a big, eager agenda, and so we make that a little bigger. Communications is a little more focused, so that one's a little smaller. But generally, we try to balance them out. We also try to ensure diversity within the committees in as many ways as you can imagine diversity. certainly all the usual suspects in terms of gender and ethnicity and everything else, and school representation and geographic, but also balancing between old and new members, so that we don't have one committee where nobody has done this before and they have any idea. And then finally, we will sometimes deliberately nudge people maybe for a second or third choice if we're trying to encourage them to branch out a little bit because we think there's leadership potential there or something like that. But the first rule is always, trying to find something that people indicated an interest in, and then from there, it's about achieving balance or maybe seeing a future path for somebody. And I'll let the governance chair add up to that too.
I didn't have as much say as maybe I hope to in the future, but I'll just give you some of my ideas and some of my concerns and things that we have to really sort out and have some discussions about. And you'll start to see this as we give you the profile demographics about the board. Through the competency assessment, we ask you, what are your competencies? And we're only just now getting to the point where we should have a better process to understand what skill sets and what knowledge sets you're bringing to the board. It is always a challenge for most boards that if you need and bring on finance people, you bring on people with governance, do you need them on those committees? Or did they come on the board because they would like to try something else? So there are people who have a background in finance that might pick other committees. And our bylaws, for example, say that in addition to the chair, you only have 4 members of the finance committee. We probably had 8 or 9 people ask for the finance committee as their first choice. We have less people who have a governance background or a background that they're highly experienced in board of directors. So our board, I think, could use more of those people given where we are as a board and going into the strategic planning process. So virtually everybody who asked for nominations in governance as their first or second choice was put on the committee, because otherwise we didn't have anybody. And that's because we haven't brought on people with those backgrounds and skill sets. And that is the kind of analysis we need to be better at, so that when we go out and bring in a whole new class next year, and this year I would say we brought in some people with nominations, we need to project out. I can tell you a year ago, we had 9 people who were highly experienced in governance lead the board. So if you're not projecting out and trying to bring people in and getting a sense, so those are some of the factors that are challenging. Those are some things that are very challenging, and we like to, if you're here to learn and you want to try different committees, some people are getting on committees just because they're asking for committees, or they have no idea what they're in for. And we need to do better at that because of the charters, and we'll get there.
Maybe one more question? Yes, Dana.
Talk a lot about the role of the committees and the role of the team members. Can you refresh us on, Jeremy, what you do or what the team, the leaders do to promote leadership?
What do I do?
Well, no, but I mean, we talked about what makes a good committee member, what makes a good committee leader. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say.
Great question. And I didn't do this earlier, but I'm also a committee chair. I chair an executive committee, where our role is essentially to lead the association when you all are not a member on a 4 or 5 times a year basis, and to craft agendas for us as a board and to ensure that we're all collectively meeting our goals. A great question about what we can do to better foster leadership, and that's something that Chris is really leading the charge on us looking at as an executive committee. Part of it is asking you who's interested in being a leader, and we've started doing that more and more often through surveys and through conversations and trying to get a sense of who might be interested. And the other is to create opportunities for you to do that. So whether that's spinning up ad hoc committees, so somebody like Aaron has a chance to lead a committee in his 6th year of board service, and we probably should have done it earlier. Or if it's naming somebody the vice chair of the committee, like Pippa's doing. And we are naming vice chairs for all of our committees, so that's an opportunity to give somebody a chance to step up for leadership. It's a way for you to grow, but it's also a way for us to know, okay, who might be on deck to be a good choice for a future committee chair. And I can assure you Vanessa is paying attention to all of that as she puts her slate together in her mind and then on paper next year. So I would say that's how we look at it. And then from there, I know Chris will be prodding us pretty strongly to think more about succession planning and leadership planning and opportunities for for growing future leaders, and does that involve training or nurturing or other programs as well? Other questions? One more maybe? No? All right. Thank you all very much. I apologize for the technical difficulties on this, but thanks for your participation. With that, it is time for lunch. We've got a quick break scheduled. Again, if you need to use the restrooms or if you want to get an early start on lunch, it is right next door. Thank you all very much.
Great. So we're coming back to this room afterwards?
I think we're having lunch and then we have the committee breakout.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry folks, really quick. I said lunch is next door, but of course you're going to get lunch next door and then take it to your committee meetings. And the room assignments are on your agenda.
I didn't bring my agenda. You have one? Can you tell me where I'm supposed to be?
So you're in which one? What's your group?
Senior level.
Okay. So you're in 407. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what time does it start?
This lunch is supposed to start right away.
Oh, so do we bring the
We bring our lunch to the room.
To that room. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's okay. Oh, I'm very focused on lunch. So.